Okay, guys, good morning. Welcome back. Week 9, right? So we are working on arrays and lists today. So I'll refresh your memories a little. We worked on combo boxes, list boxes last week. We learned how to do a for each loop, a for loop. We also did a while. So those are loops that you've already seen in other programming languages. I kind of just not reintroduced you to them in C#, right? So this week we are going to talk about arrays and lists. Lists are like array lists in your Java to kind of make a connection. So we all know that array is a fixed sized homogeneous collection. What it means is it has to have a fixed size. You have to say how many I want. It is all elements of the array are of the same type. And of course, an array has a name and you access each element by the help of an index, starting from 0 to whatever you've said size minus 1, right? With arrays, there is a restriction of size, but it works well if you know how many I want, and that's perfectly fine. It's not so tough. But also, we don't have any, it can grow dynamically, right? So if you would like to use a structure, a data structure that can grow dynamically, then C# like Java gives you classes like a list, which is like an array list in your Java, a sorted list, which is like your hash map in Java. Right? So I'll try to do these two. I'll try to do a one-dimensional array and a two-dimensional array, and then I'll try to do a list and a sorted list in the same program, right? So that's what we are aiming at today. So to start with, what I did for you is I created the GUI for you, the interface for you, because you've done all these controls before. I thought I would just save some time, right? So please notice I have two group boxes, and in the group boxes, there's one inside the another, but the quantity group box has 3 radio buttons. I have a combo box of type drop down list, right? That is, you cannot enter anything in the text box. You should have done this in your in-class assignment 4 last week, right? You were supposed to only select from this combo box. I choose to do a combo box just because list takes too much space and combo box is just neater. But depending upon, it doesn't really matter what you use. I just prefer to use combo boxes. They're just neat to look at. Some people prefer to use a list so that they can see everything together. Whatever works for you. Okay. So we have a combo box, and then we have an output price text box, which is read only and tab stop properties false. Right. Please keep in mind that we do not need shorthand keys for output fields. What is the use of shorthand keys? They help you to go to the input by using your keyboard. Right? Because you need to give something in it. You need to provide an input. Output boxes don't need them and should not have them. If you have an output box or any output, whether it's a text box or whether it's whatever, right? Doesn't matter. But if you have a shorthand key in an output label, that tells me you don't know what keyboard access keys are. Right? Keyboard access keys are used to give input and use your keyboard. Instead of the mouse, you use your keyboard to kind of go to the input field. So don't do that. It doesn't make sense at all. And then I have 4 buttons. And the 4 buttons, if you notice, all of them have a shorthand key. So the only one, in this one, you basically only have to, I think even type, the T will automatically work. The combo box one also automatically works. You don't have to worry a lot. But notice I always have, in my tab order, I always make it a point to kind of say, oh, this is where I want to go. So the 0 and 1 are useless because they are labels. But notice how I go from 2, and in 2 inside, I first go to quantity. I see something is not right here. I have a 2.0. Okay, so we'll go 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so then we'll go to 2.0. This should be a 2.1, a 2.2. This doesn't matter because it's an output box, really doesn't matter. So 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and then just to kind of complete it, we'll go 2.7 and 2.8, right? So inside the group box, notice how it starts doing 2 point, right? So if the group box is 2, then inside you have 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, and so on. And since this was a group box inside again, the 2.0 has 2.0, 0.0, 0.1, 0.2. That's all. So you just have to kind of set your tab orders right. So 0 and 1 are ignored just because they are labels. I could have started with the coffee prices straight away. I just left it where it was. But inside the coffee prices, my tab order was a little messed up. I don't know how, but it was. But anyway, I've set it right now. So it will go to the quantity box first. From the quantity box to your input 2.1, and then and then 2.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 just for completeness, so that they don't clash with something that is already available. Keep in mind, keyboard access keys have to be unique on a particular form at a given time. You can repeat them in menus, you can repeat them in context menus, but on the form, two buttons cannot have the same key. An input text box and a button cannot have the same keyboard access key, because the use of a keyboard access key is to go to that control directly. So if you have two with the same keyboard access keys, it's not unique. So where does it go, kind of, right? So that behavior becomes unpredictable. So don't do that. A couple of you made that silly mistake in the midterm exam. Midterm exam marks are up, right? Everything is up. Feedback is available. Please go through it. Anything that you're not satisfied with, please come and talk to me. Okay? Anything at all, anything you feel, oh, why should I lose marks here, or what did I do wrong so that I don't repeat it, whatever. In class assignment 3 marks are up to. I updated them yesterday. I thought it was high time I did it, because assignment 4 I'm going to mark today, right? So anybody who submitted assignment 4 last week, by Thursday we gave an extension, right? Romika had to work, if you remember, everybody got an extension. I'll mark it today while you do your in class 5 now. So in class 5 is ready after we finish this. So what we are doing is, as I do something, usually I do it every week, but every 2 weeks I give you, excuse me, something that has covered everything I've done in class. So I think you are going okay. I'm satisfied with how you are doing. If you are not satisfied with the class or what's going on in the class or how I'm teaching, please let me know. Right? It would be nice to know if you would like to have something else added to the course. My aim is that I cover everything in the course contents. I give you an example. I give you something to do hands-on so that you get a little practice and you know what you are doing. Of course, I can't say I'm covering everything 100%. Can't do it, right? Because in 14 weeks, you kind of, so I don't skim, but I don't do it like 100%. But I'm in a comfortable zone where I give you enough so that you can go from there. Right? But it would be nice to see me being copied in your assignments. Try and catch in assignment in class 3 was not very satisfactory for everybody. It was for many, but not. So I've left a note on your blackboard saying, come see me. So if I've seen that you're not still there with try catches, I've said, come and see me. If you have a try catch, you don't put a try parse inside it. It's useless. You know what I mean? Like, you don't use both of them, you use one of them. So if you're using try parse, then basically I can see separate error messages, what went wrong. And I want to see separate error messages. A user should always be told what went wrong. Something is wrong makes no sense to me. To any user, it doesn't make sense. So if I've left a note for you on your in-class assignment 3, please come and see me if, of course, you're interested, right? I would like you to get it right before you move on, because we'll use it everywhere. We'll use it everywhere. Wherever we do something that, any method that throws an exception, we will use it. So get it right, okay? So I've left a note there if there was anything. Otherwise, I mean, of course, your marks will tell you where you went wrong, or I give you feedback right in class when I mark it. Some of you don't show it to me for, I don't know, maybe you're just lazy or you don't get time or whatever. But as long as it got submitted on time on Blackboard, I've marked it, okay? But please, it would be nice if you can show it to me in class. Of course, we all know that it's, I always, at the end, I say, oh, we don't have time. It's not only you, it's me too, right? But if you could show it to me in class or, anytime in my office, that would be great. Then I can give you feedback right away and you know where you've gone wrong. So it's in your benefit also. Of course, it benefits me also. I save time, but it benefits you also, okay? So all marks till date are up on Blackboard. We've kind of covered 50% of the course. So you should have an idea of where you stand. Depending upon how many in classes we do, the easy ones I'll kind of give 5 or 7%, and the ones that are more tough, I'll give 10%. So kind of you can assume they're kind of equally weighted. Exams, of course, will be equally weighted. So exams, so kind of 50% course is what you've covered. So if you're really interested, and I don't see any student kind of in a bad situation that they're not passing or something. So I think you're all good. So I'm hoping that good means that you're comfortable with how the course is going on. But again, if there is anything that's not working for you, I would appreciate if you could come and talk to me about it, right? We still have 5 weeks. I could still change stuff, okay? Okay, so going from here, so you will notice I've also given you some code which will have some errors, I'm sure, because printing is using certain fields which I haven't yet used. For example, there is a transaction coffee sale list which I haven't yet used. So it's somewhere that somewhere it doesn't work. Okay, there is something called coffee sale which I haven't yet defined. So we'll leave this alone. I won't touch it till I kind of make a little changes. What I'll do is, just so that I don't make that mistake, remember how last time I had to copy and paste? This time when I kind of comment it, I'll comment inside. I won't comment the whole method. I'll just comment the code. So that way I'll be okay. So if I comment that for now, where are we? Else. I think somewhere here we should be okay. Yeah, we are good. I'm just commenting my code so that I can remove these syntax errors. So I'll uncomment it when I know I'm ready to go. Anything? No, nothing else. There's not much else at all. I gave you the print document again, remember, for the simple reason that it's just a lot of typing. So to save that typing. Yes, Mikhail. Which line? You still see some error?
Oh, no, the numbers for the what we call on the editor, where we show.
Oh, you want to see the line numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. View somewhere maybe. Yeah, you can bring up line numbers. You are right. Where was it? Not in view. Somewhere in preferences, maybe options. Somewhere environment. In your editor, text editor, C#, maybe general, parameters, auto list, word wrap, enable, line numbers there. You would prefer to see line numbers? Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, good. Okay, so if you're with me, I have commented line from line, I think I commented before also. So I haven't commented the header, just that way I don't have to change anything. So I've commented from line number 24 to line number 99. That's my first commenting after the bracket on 99. So this way I don't have to copy and paste in the sense then it was creating problems just because it went off, I had to remove it. So I leave it empty. The method is empty now. And then from 105 to 121. So 3 brackets at the end leave. I think one was for the class, one for namespace, and one for the method. Okay, so we are good. So now it's fine. So if you would like to run it now, that's how it looks. Okay, so you'll say, oh, you have a radio button that is clicked, that is selected by default. Yes, I did that. I wanted that, right? So to remove it, remember I told you the trick. You have to take that auto check property, set it to false, and then again set it to true in your load. I'll show you if you want, but I made that on. So from here, and now if you check your tabs, they should work, right? From here to here to here to here and so on. And of course, your Alt keys should work. So if I do an Alt T, I jump here, which I always was here, Alt H, I go back to Alt T and I come here. So Alt T is working too, right? Everything should work. All your keyboard access keys should work. The price is an output. This is what I want to do today. This is what this form is about. So a customer comes, wants to buy coffee in bulk. Therefore, it was called bulk coffee sales. Chooses one of quarter pound, half pound, or full pound. How much do they want? The quantity, and then the type of coffee they want. The type of coffee is regular, decaffeinated, and special blend. Depending upon what they choose in these two inputs, the price comes up here in the price box, right? So it's kind of a lookup, right? So this information is saved somewhere that quarter pound regular is this much, quarter pound, quarter pound regular is this much, decaffeinated is this much. So this information I have to keep somewhere. Similarly, half pound regular is this much, half pound decaffeinated, and so on. So I have to keep this information somewhere for a lookup. I have to look it up. It's not being calculated, it is being looked up. So since you could declare, if you like, 3 into 3, 9 variables, and keep this information in 9 different variables. I wouldn't like to do that, right? What I'll do is I'll put this information in a 2-dimensional array. Why in a 2-dimensional array? Because I have 2 dimensions to it. I have the quantity and I have the type, right? So where do you use a 1-dimensional array? Where do you use a 2-dimensional array? I think from experience, you should be able to say. So since I have 2 parameters, what is the weight of the coffee or the quantity, and what is the type of coffee? So I need 2 parameters to work. I'll use a 2-dimensional array. Also, I'll show you how to use a 1-dimensional array. What I'll do is all transactions that are created, all that is sold in a particular day or week, whatever. Really, it depends upon what kind of what does your customer need. I'm going to keep these transactions in an array again. I could keep them in a file, but we haven't done file yet. File will be our next target. So I'm going to keep this information. What did you sell? How much did you sell? And what was the price? All these three pieces of information per record in an array. So I'll create an array of records. A record is basically a collection of items of different type. So what was sold, in what quantity, and what was the price. So I'll keep this information also in an array, so that at the end of the day, the guy says, oh, what did I sell today? Open up that array, like of course it should be a file, but here we'll have an array, and says, oh, these are the transactions I made. So I'll create a one-dimensional array. Each dimension of the array will have 3 fields inside it. So we will also learn how to create a record in C#, which is called a structure in C#. So an array is a collection of items of the same kind. A structure is a collection of items of different kinds. So you can put them together. Once I do this, I'm hoping I'll have time. I'll kind of replace my one-dimensional array with a list so that it can grow dynamically. And cannot do the two-dimensional array. No, cannot do that. No, at least I'll show you how to do a list. Okay, sorted list is basically a key value pair, but I don't have one key here. I have 2 keys. What quantity? What is the type of the coffee? So I won't be able to use a sorted list. Anyway, let's see how we go. So do you understand what I'm trying to do? So when I click on find, it will give me the price. When I click on clear, it will clear my inputs, take my coffee back to quarter pound. My default state, the print, what I've printed. So how much did you, I'm going to print my transactions of my shop. I'll show you how to do that, and exit will exit. Okay, that's what it is doing, right? That's what it will do at the end of the day. Are we okay with what the application is doing? Okay, so I kind of created this for you. So clear right now, there's nothing. I don't have code for anything at all, but we'll start from the tough one, not the tough one, the new one for us, the find, and go from there. Okay, so that's our aim today. Okay, so let's close this. There is no other way. Notice how it comes in the center of the screen. It has a border. Oops, my mistake. Forgot to do my border style. Make it fixed. Cannot maximize it. Has a title and everything. So I forgot this. So the property form border style has not been set. I'll have to kind of set it something like this. Oh, I must have done it there so that I have equal space. I'm not sure. I see that you kind of, not all of you, of course. There is always, you can always select something and you can go center in my form. You can always select everything you want, like a group box, and you can say center in my form, right? And of course, the name I kind of usually put on the right. So try to use these tools that are available. Don't try to do it yourself, because you will always make a mistake. And you know what? My eyes are very sharp. If I see something, I can make out it's not completely centered. So if you will notice in your midterm, I don't know, how many of you even read the feedback? Let me see, is it worth giving you feedbacks? How many of you read feedbacks when I give them back to you? Not bad, I'm satisfied. It takes me half hour or so, right? I try to give every feedback on everything so that you don't make that mistake again. And you learn from it, right? It's just a healthy feedback I'm trying to give you. So I see you may have noticed I've said heading is not centered, and you'll say, like, she's so finicky. I mean, how can she see heading is not? Because I can make it out, right? And how do you do it? You try your best, but this is better. Just choose and do it, right? So for me, interface is important. How it looks, it could be as simple as this, but see, it's neat and clean, right? All keyboard access keys are working. Everything is okay. I cannot maximize it. And please see that you do this, which I forgot. Please go to it's coming in the center of the screen. My form border style, I forgot. There, make it fixing there, right? It was sizable. We don't want that. Why? Because the form doesn't look neat then. Because we are not using CSS here, where we can kind of, as we change the size, it automatically relates to it. We haven't done that. So in Windows Form, this is what we do. We make the size of our form constant, right? Okay, so now let's start. Let's start to work on this. So of course, the easy ones we'll do first, in the sense that they're just easy, or you can start with find, really doesn't matter. Okay, so let's start with find. Notice what I've done in my quarter pound. If you go to this radio button, oh, I must tell you something else that I did a little differently here, just so that I tell you a third type of convention. Notice my convention in this project. I have put the name of the control in front, but I haven't used that 3-lettered. I've used the whole thing: radio button, text boxes, combo boxes. That's another way of doing a convention. So we've learned 3 conventions now. There should have only been one convention like in Java, but here there's another convention in C#. What do? You place the name of the control in the beginning. The advantage is when you select anything, when you select a control, it's automatically there. All you have to put is the name afterwards. Makes life a little easy, right? So put the name of the control, the complete name of the control before the name, or second convention, put it at the end, or the third convention that we've been using, use the 3-lettered word in the front, right? The advantage of putting it in the front, as far as I think, is when I have to look for something and I know it as a text box, I start typing text or text, and all IntelliSense gives me all text boxes. It's easy. Some people say, oh, I remember the name of my text box, so I'm fine. I can put the name of the text box at the end. I can put the control name at the end. Some people just don't prefer it, but I haven't seen it. I've always seen that the name of the control is somewhere, either at the front or at the back. So I just thought I would show you another convention, and just for the sake of it, 3 of us are teaching C# and we are using 3 different conventions. I use the 3-lettered one just because my book uses it, right? Tom, who's teaching the other section for C#, puts it at the end, and Rich puts it in the beginning. So they're all 3 conventions. They're all there out there. You know what? I think I'll stick with this one where you put it in the front, and maybe next semester onwards, I'll just write the whole name. Then I don't have to go looking for what's the 3-lettered word, what's the 3-lettered word, kind of. But at least you can, it just helps in looking it up quickly. Okay, so that's the convention I've used, just so that you know. You'll say, now, if she hasn't done it before, just thought I would let you know, so that you know. So notice how every name of the control form and everything, form, radio button, combo box, they're all in the front. And I didn't have to do anything at all. When I select something, this name automatically comes. I remove that number, 1, 2, whatever, and just put the name. Okay, so do that. Also, a few of you, I don't know how you do it, because I just do it this way. I always change the name of my form in my Solution Explorer. When I change it here, it changes everywhere. But I've noticed in some assignments and exams, the name here is different from the name here. I don't know where you make that change. Why would you do it 2 different places? I don't know. Or maybe you forget and do it afterwards. The easiest way is, whenever you start creating a form, first thing, change it here, and it will automatically change it everywhere. So I see different names. I have no clue what you do. So I say, please try to do it in the Solution Explorer. Okay, so let's get ready. Let's try to do our find, right? So we are concentrating on arrays and lists today. Arrays are fixed size, lists are dynamic in nature. That's the difference. They both have methods that you can work with, and we will learn how to work with those methods. There are some variables that are attached to these classes, like find out how many, size, count, and so on. In a double dimensional array, you can always find out how many rows and how many columns. Like you can find the length of an array in 1-dimensional array. In a 2-dimensional or a multi-dimensional array, you can always find out how many rows do I have, how many columns do I have. There is a method that is available. I think it's called get length or something. And you say 0, it will tell you number of rows. You say get length 1, it will tell you the number of columns. So it can all be done. Okay. Okay. So as I say, you can start with whatever you like. Please remember, we will always give a comment, a functionality comment. So this is basically terminating the application. If you're going to use application.exit, it will say close the form if you're going to use close, whatever works for you. So I'm going to say terminate the application. When it comes to using forms, then it will be different. Remember, when I start creating multi-form projects, I have done one with you, though not the splash screen and about are not there. But when I do, I'll start seeing, oh, do I need to close the form or do I need to exit my application? So we've been doing this, whatever works for you, and we've been using the exit. There, right? So that's my exit. As I said, I'm just kind of getting the easy ones out of my way. I can do the clear also, except I don't remember all my names, but that's okay. Okay, so in my design, this radio button was checked by default, or maybe I've done it in load, I don't remember. Where's the checked property? C. MNOPQRSC. Oh, it's not here. So somewhere in the load then. Oh, you know what? By default, it was first in my tab order. Therefore, it is checked by default, right? If you don't want to check it by default, I hope you remember the trick. Do you remember the trick? It's just a bug, so we have to do it. You go here, you set its auto check property. A couple of you have done it in the exam. You just chose to start with the radio button. You go here, you go to its auto check property. There it is, and set it to false. So let me show you. If I do that, and if I run my code, Yeah, there, I can do that. But the problem now is then I can't even select it. Then I've set it back to true in my load procedure, right? So you have to do this if you don't want it checked. I just thought, you know what, I don't mind. Let the quarter pound be checked by default. But if you don't want it checked, you have to do this. There is no other way. We can't do it any other way. I've tried everything, right? I just simply can't say radio button dot checked is equal to false. It doesn't work. So this is how you do it. You make your auto check property false here. So auto check means don't check it by default. But then remember to make it true here. So take your, what was it called? Something to do with quarter pound, and it's a radio button. So we are using radio buttons. There it is. And you can say auto check property, bring it back to true. This will allow you to select it at least, right? So now if you try it again, it's not checked, but I can select it. Okay, so that's the trick. The exit should work now. Exit is written, right? So that's the trick. In this one, I just thought quarter pound will be checked by default. So I didn't bother to do it, right? You can, if you like, whatever works for you. It's not a big deal. But if you forgot that trick, then it is back to you, right? Okay, so if you want to do what I've been doing and using, we can do it that way. Okay, some variables now that I need at module level. Where you declare your variables is important. Okay, so let's declare some module level variables to use in here in my code. Okay, one, I'll show you how to declare a structure in C#. A structure is basically a collection of items of different type.
Start the comment at private, the print document one print page, like you commented it.
Oh yeah, I commented it out.
Okay.
I did. I commented out, leaving the header. I didn't remove the header, because if you do that, then you have problems afterwards, because then you have to remove the events and everything. I said, let it be an empty method.
Okay.
So this was just better, right? I don't have to worry about anything now. So it stays, it's an empty method, but that's okay. We can bring it back. Okay, so where were we? Okay, let's declare some module level variables. How do you declare a structure in C#? A struct or a structure in C# is a collection of items of different kind, right? So let's take something. I'm going to declare a private, keeping that data must be private and methods must be public. Taking a structure, give it a name, and I'll call it coffee sales. I have to follow this name, guys, and you should follow it if you have to use my print. Pardon my looking at my notes, because the names I have to do them because I need them. Okay, so I'm going to declare a coffee sales structure, and in this structure I'm going to put some, you make the methods public. That's how you do structures in you don't have to call it quantity string. That's another habit, right? I usually put the type with it. You can use a capital S string. You can also use the small s string. I was kind of, when I looked at it first, I said, what's going on? They're both classes. One's coming from C++. It's old legacy code that has been coming from C++. I think we used to use small s there, and here they've made it capital because class names start with capital. Use whatever, doesn't matter. So this is how you declare the elements inside. So I'm declaring a quantity. I'm declaring a type of the coffee, quantity of the coffee, and I'm declaring a decimal value for the price. That's my structure. So notice how to make that red squiggly go away. No, it doesn't still go away. What am I missing? Oh, sorry, wrong place. Module level variables. Wrong place, not in the inside the class. Sorry, here, wrong place. That's why I'm saying, why do I see the red squiggly? There, right? So inside the class, module level variables inside the class, not in namespace. Namespace is the package statement like in Java. So it was at the wrong place. Okay, so that's structure in C#. What have you done? You've defined a new type, right? You've just defined a new type. You've called that type coffee sale. And what does your type have? Your type has a collection of 3 items, a quantity, a type, and a price of type string, string, and decimal. So you can collect items of different related items, of course, right? This is related. Every coffee will have what quantity was it bought in, what was the type of coffee that was bought, and what is the price. So I'm keeping this transaction in my array. So I'll keep all my transactions. At the end of the day, the owner can look at it and said, oh, this is what I sold today for inventory purposes or whatever, right? Whatever. right? So what I've created here is a record structure, if you are familiar with the word record, or it's called structure in C#. And what it has done is it has collected 3 related items into a group, and that group is your coffee sale. So you've defined a new type. If you want now to define a variable of this type, you will use this name coffee sale and then the name of the variable, like you do integer, name of the type, and then the name of the variable. So you have defined a user defined type here. Okay. Okay. Now let's define. So I'll use it somewhere. Don't worry, I'll use it. Okay. Now I'm going to declare some more module level variables. Bear with me. I know what I'm doing because I've done it before. So I know where to put them. If these are not module level variables and we'll have to declare them somewhere else, I'll move them. Okay. Constants, named constants. 50% of the class lost these 2 marks on midterm without any reason. I've been using named constants so many times. We've done it when you were doing the prices of coffees, right? Second example, I think. What are constants? I've said they improve. They are named constants. A value is given a name. Why would you give a value a name? Because you want that value to be constant in your code. It doesn't change. So for flexibility and readability. So it improves readability. Instead of using something like 5.6 or 0.13 in my code, I call it tax rate and use tax rate everywhere. Flexibility. So that's readability. Flexibility, it changes, constant changes. All I do is I go to my named constant from 0.13, I change it to 0.15. Changed. I don't have to worry about it. So named constants, why did you need it in your code? Wednesday section did what? Currency, right? You did a currency converter. Those rates, the 0.76 and 1.32, they make no sense in code because I don't know what they mean. But if you start calling them Canadian to US conversion or whatever, they start making sense. 2 marks, 50% of the class didn't do it. I was kind of saying, what's going on? I checked my notes to see, did I do it in class? Yes, I have done it in class. So I don't know why you lost it, but anyway, so here I'm declaring some constants here, and this constant is the size of my array. So if you would like to put it, size of the, now I know I'm using array, but like what else can I say here, right? Usually in comments, you should not use technical terms. So this is how many do you want to, let's, instead of the size of the array, you can say number of transactions to save. Here, maybe that will make sense. I'm using a small number because otherwise I'll have to do a lot of work. So I'm keeping this number small. Okay, how are constants? Naming convention for constants, Pascal case convention. Okay, so I'm calling it maximum. You can call it maximum transactions if you like. Right, and we'll give it a value of 5. So it's a small one, I know. You will definitely, the owner will cry his heart out. Only 5 transactions in a day. But I'm doing this so that I don't have to keep on selecting a lot of data so that I can show. So that's a constant that I'm going to use, which will say how many do you need. Okay, now I'm going to save these transactions somewhere. I'll use an array here because I want to show you what an array is, right? So how do you declare an array in C#, like any other language? Okay, now what's the type of my array? In this array, I want to save the transactions, and each transaction has 3 parts to it: a quantity, a type, and a price. So what should be the type of this array? It's an array that is saving my transactions, the transactions that were done during the day. Each transaction is saving a quantity, a price, and a type. Each element of the array is not a single element. It's not an int or a decimal or a string. It's not an array just of one item each. It is an array of records. It's an array of structures. So the type of this array is this coffee sale that you just defined. There it is. That's what it, oops. Make sense? So each element of the array is of type coffee sale. That's what I'm trying to say. So if it was an integer, I would just say int. Then your array is an array of integers. If it was a double, I would say double or decimal, whatever. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong in it. Like each element is of that type. Here I'm saying it is an array. How do I say it is an array? Like this. Okay. I'm saying it is an array, and every element of this array is of type coffee sale. Okay. Let's name the array, whatever you would like to call it. I'm going to call it transactions, camel case convention. You can name it whatever. Again, please give useful and meaningful names. I've called it transactions coffee sales. I'll put it on GitHub as soon as I figure out what's going on, right? And I don't have to initialize it because I'll be putting, when a transaction is made, I'll be putting it in my transaction array. So you don't initialize it. If you had to, you would say is equal to, of course, and put the curly brackets and initialize it, but I can't. I don't know what transactions will occur in my store. I have no clue. Like, I don't know. But to say that I need an array is a class in C#. So you will have to create an object of that type. So how do you say? You say new, what was it called? New coffee sale, right? That's the name of your array. And how many do you want? I said I'll go with that maximum transactions. What are you saying? You're saying, please create an object for me. The object is called transactions coffee sale, and it is an array. So you have to go like this in C# because array is a class, right? So you're creating an object of that class. How do you do it? You call the constructor, you say new, and what is the type of your element? If it was int, I would have said new int. Now I want to create an array of that type. So I'm saying new coffee sale. And how many do you want? You have to say, you can't leave it empty. You can't. If you have to leave it empty, then you'll have to initialize it. So you can leave it empty if you like, if you go is equal to and then initialize it. I can't. I don't want to initialize my array. Doesn't make sense initializing my transactions array because it will be populated afterwards, right? As transactions are happening every day, that's when it will be populated. And that's how I declare an array, and that's how I initialize an array. Joel, we've started from a file in which I gave the interface, and it is available on Blackboard under weekly learning, start files, arrays and lists. Okay, so we are kind of working on that. And as soon as I figure out, I don't know what's going on. I really don't know. Let's go back to for a minute, very quickly. Let's see if I can see. I don't know what's going on. I can't even do anything. I can't update. I don't know what's. It hasn't been. So usually my email address is here, and then I can just edit my repository and there. Oh, I'm not signed in? No. On my GitHub, you mean?
You're not signed in on, yeah.
But in Visual Studio, do you think?
You have to sign in.
Oh, yeah, maybe you mean behind the scenes I'm not signed in? Could be. I can't. I usually am signed in on my. I don't ever kind of come out of it. On my laptop, I just keep signed in. Do you think that's my problem? No, I am signed in. Yeah, I usually never kind of, I don't because I use it all the time, right? So I don't know why I can't see that connection. I can try to sign out and sign in, but I am signed in, right? So I'm not sure why I can't do anything here. You see, I can't do nothing here.
Maybe save the work and restart this.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could do. I could do that. Let me just kind of get, try to do it in the break or something. Okay, here. Okay, so that's my array. That's my single dimensional array, has one dimension. You could be creating arrays of all types and kinds of ints, of decimals, or whatever. I've gone a step ahead. I've kind of created a more complicated array. It is an array where each element is a structure type. Okay, so that's my array. Also, I'll need something. Remember, we've done this before where I keep which radio button was selected in a radio button, so that then I just check what it is, just to be a little different today, and just to show you that you can use a small s for string also. It confuses me. Anyway, right? Today, instead of using the name of the, like I said, what's the name? I'm going to use another property called selected radio string. I'll tell you what I'm doing. So selected radio button. Let's say, okay. So in a previous example, just to be a little different, just to show you something else. In the previous examples that I've done, I've used it as a button. I saved which button was saved, right? In this example, I'm just going to save the name of the button. just to show you that it can be done in another way. And I'll need it. And what else do I need? I need another private int. I'll be using this as an index, okay? And I'm not sure, maybe I have to use it in more than one places, but I have it at a module level. Okay, so that's your first introduction to an array. If, let's do this just on the same. If I wanted a dynamic list, I didn't want to restrict myself to 5. I'll show you both ways, just because I want you to use some if statements, and that 5 will help me because I can't go beyond the size of my array. Otherwise, you will get an array index out of bounds exception. If you try to save something, your index value is incorrect, less than 0 or more than 4 in your case, we go from 0 to 4, it will give you an error. So let's create a list also. So just for the just so that you can use it. I'll say save the transactions in a list. Let me do it side by side. That way I don't have to worry about it. Okay. I'll do it both ways. Okay. Just so that you can see. So now to declare a list, that's how you say. You say list. You can use private, of course. I want to declare a list. What's the type of my list? Same. The elements of my list will be of what type? The coffee sale types. Right? Instead of calling it transaction coffee sales, I'll just call it transaction coffee sales list, just so that it's easy to remember. How is a list different from an array? Dynamic in nature. It is dynamic in nature. It doesn't have an upper bound. Of course, the upper bound is your memory, but generally speaking, it doesn't have an upper bound. What do you say? You say new. Call the constructor. Oops, call the constructor. Say the type. And to call the constructor, there it is. That's how you create a list. Familiar? We've done this in Java so many times, right? To create an object, you go new, you call the constructor of the class. In the previous one, I called the array constructor. In this one, I'm calling the list constructor, right? And I have declared the type of the element in the list. Definitely when you do this, so somewhere here, there it is. On line number 2, notice how it has started using system.collections.generic. I'm using a generic list. These are called generic classes, right? These are called generic classes. So since these are already, if they were not here, you would have to put them yourself. We may need to, but some of them are already here. And you can always, you'll say, how will I know? It will give you an error, bring your mouse over it, and it will tell you what class, what namespace has to be included. So it's not so tough, right? We need to know how to use the classes in any object-oriented program. So I'll keep both of them. So the difference between the two will be, one is of a fixed size. I can only keep 5 transactions at a time, and I'll kind of put that logic in my code just so that you can see how to work with an array, which I'm hoping you've seen before in other languages. Plus, I'll also put a list. Okay. Okay, so that's done. And now let's go back to there we were here. Oh, not even in load. Okay, so in load, just because I've kind of made this that I'll use this as a default button today, just so that I can show you a few more different things. I'm going to go back to my properties, and I'm going to go to its auto check property and make it back to true. Right? I want it to be auto checked by default. It's okay. I want to keep it checked today. Okay, I want to keep it checked today. Just so that I'm just showing you a different way, and I don't want to do this. But what I want to do is this, which a couple of you forgot in your code. If you're using a variable, if you have a radio button checked by default, like some of you had, then you have to kind of manage it, right? You have a variable called selected radio button, and then you don't change it anymore. So it always remains null, and nothing happens to that radio button. Some of you created the radio button but never used it at all in your code. So be careful of what you're doing. So what I'm going to do here is, remember which one of my quarter pound radio button is checked by default. So what I'm going to do is in my load or activated or whatever, I'm going to set it right, and its name is this. Okay, here is its name. Okay, so remember I have to set default values in my load. That's what I usually do. I could do it in activated and so on. There's another event with a form which is called activated, which is used more commonly. Let me tell you the difference between load and activated. A load event handler is called every time the form is loaded in memory. You'll say, but we load it every time. Yes, you do. When you start working with multi-form projects, you may be closing the form and then loading it again, closing the form and loading it again. This event handler will always be called. Maybe instead of closing the form, you hide the form. When you hide a form and then when you show it again, then the load method is not called because you're not loading into memory. All you did was it was in memory, you hid it. Then you will put your code in activated event handler. Activated means, oh, it was sleeping, it's up now. Activated, right? So be careful that I'm using load all the time because I'm only doing single form applications till date, and I always close them. I mean, I don't go anywhere. I use them and I close them. So if I run the application again, it again gets loaded. So I usually put my code here, but we'll start looking at other things. Okay, that selected radio button string that you created, I'm going to initialize it. Okay, so instead of doing it, I'm going to use it. What was it called? It was called radio button something, quarter pound. That was its name. Once I know its name, then I'll put it in double quotes. So get the name first and then put it in double quotes. I've saved the string. So it was a string variable. Remember, it was a string variable. So I'm saving the name of the string. In a previous example, you started by giving it null and you were saving the name of the button. Okay, and if you want, you don't have to. It's a global variable. But every time you choose, and every time I'm only allowing 5 transactions at a time. You don't have to do it. But if you wanted, you could initialize other variables. It's a module level variable. If I change it, then I'll have to be careful. But if it is a module level variable, remember by default it is 0. If I change it, I'll have to take care that I give it a value of 0 somewhere. Here I'm okay for now. So anything else? So what did I do? I'm going to keep this radio string always. It will always have the name of the radio button that you got that was selected as a string. I just made it a string this time. I just chose to. Okay, there's my load. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Where were we? Did I click on find? I should have, didn't I? No, I did. Okay, let's start now. Let's now try to make the find button work. So what does this method do? What does this event handler do? Depending upon user's choice, the type of the coffee and the weight, this will show a price in the price text box. That's the functionality of this find button click. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Displays the price of the coffee based on the type and quantity chosen by the user. That's what it does. So please see that you have a functionality comment, right? You have a functionality comment which says what it does. Then comment your code as and when required, as much as you require in code. So don't kind of go beyond, like it's too much if I have to, like, then it becomes quite cluttering. I don't want any cluttered code, but at least one functionality, always do it. I always do it. But many of you didn't do it. So this time I let it go. Okay, so that's what it does. Now, if you remember, I said that we will be saving these prices somewhere. Like I have to look it up. So where will I save it? An array is good enough for this. I don't have to save it in a list. It won't change dynamically. It's a list of a fixed size, but it has 2 parameters, the quantity and the type. So whenever you have 2 parameters that together give you a value, you need a 2-dimensional array. So how do you decide what kind of array do I need? Look at the parameters. For the price depends upon 2 things. If it only depended upon one, I would have a 1-dimensional array. Now it depends upon 2. It depends upon the quantity that you buy and the type that you buy. So since there are 2 parameters involved, I'll need a 2-dimensional array. So let's learn how to now declare a 2-dimensional array. So we are basically displaying or finding whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter. But we display it also. Here. There. Okay. So now let's save the prices in a 2-dimensional array. I could have declared this 2-dimensional array at a module level. It's only used in this price method. So I chose to make it local. So arrays, just like any other data type, I mean, like any other classes that you've used, you can declare them globally at the module level, or you can declare them locally. It's just a variable. Okay, so let's declare this array. How do you declare a 2-dimensional array in C#? Of course, you give it a name, you give it a type, and so on. So what type of array is this? I'm just saving the prices of my coffee sales. So I'm basically saying this coffee regular in quarter pound is this much. Regular in half pound is this much. Regular in full pound is this much. So this much is what kind of value? What is it? What are prices values? What are they? Come on, prices are what? Are they strings? Are they ints? Are they decimals? Decimals. So we need a decimal array. You can't be sleeping, guys. If I'm teaching, you have to listen to me and answer my questions. So we need a decimal array, right? We need a two-dimensional decimal array. We just learned to put it in square brackets. Because you need a two-dimensional array, put a comma in between. There, that's a two-dimensional array in C#. So you're saying I'm going to declare a two-dimensional array of type decimal in my, you don't put private or public here. Keep in mind, those are only specifiers for module level variables. You can't do it here. Okay, give it a name. I'm just calling it price. You can call it whatever you like. Now, I told you, since it is an array, we'll have to call the constructor. We'll have to say, give me new something. But now another way of doing it is, I know I have to save those prices. I have to initialize it. Transactions array, I couldn't initialize it because I cannot. Like logically, there's nothing in the transactions array. But here I need to initialize it. How do you initialize it? Automatically, it will calculate the size of the array. So there are two ways. Either you go new and you say, this is what I want. But you know what? The other way, if I have to initialize something, I'll initialize it using the curly brackets. And inside the curly brackets, I'll use how many curly brackets? Depends. I have 3 types and 3 quantities. There. Oops. There's something also called, so this is a two-dimensional array in C#. Right? They're called multi-dimensional arrays. 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. There is another kind of arrays in C# which are called jagged arrays, an array of arrays. So you have an array, and inside that array, you can have arrays of different sizes. Here, each row has to be of the same size. This is a multi-dimensional array. A multi-dimensional array says I'm using a 2-1. I have rows, and each rows have the same number of columns. So it's fixed, right? You have to fix it. In a jagged array, you can create that's an array of arrays. You have an array, and inside the array, you could have arrays of different sizes. So maybe an array of size 2, the next is of size 3, the next is of 1, the next is of 4, and so on. So those are, again, can be used depending upon your application. I'm okay here because I need, how many do I need? I need, for every, I have 3 quantities. So it's fixed, right? So for each one, I'll keep these values of 3 quantities. Okay, here are my prices. So therefore, I have 3 rows, right? So the first row, you can assume it anyway. You can assume, oh, are you keeping quarter pounds prices together, then half pounds, and then full pounds? Or you can say, oh, are you keeping the prices of the regular together, regular, half pound, full pound, quarter pound, then decaffeinated, so on, 3 or whatever. So it doesn't really matter how we are keeping it. I don't remember how I kept it, but whatever, you have to know, of course, when you use it, that how these prices are being kept. I'll double check, okay, to just tell you how I'm keeping it. Okay, so here is how you initialize it. You go, that's your first, and M for decimal. Remember, 2.90 N. I'm just putting a 90 to make it more pretty. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It won't save the 0. But for me, since I'm working with monetary values and we always have 2 places after decimal, I'm going to put 2 places after decimal. Okay. So this is the price of the regular coffee in quarter pound, half pound, and full pound. So 3 lines, 3 values needed, right? So this is the price of the coffee. So let's declare it here. Save the prices of each coffee type for lookup. Right? So the first row is what? This is the price of regular coffee in quarter pound, half pound, and full pound. That's your first row, right? Exactly like your first row. So you're basically saying, okay, I have this coffee is regular, and this is the quarter pound price, this is the half pound price, and this is the full pound price. Okay, save the prices of each coffee size. So you can kind of add it. Each row is for a coffee type. So basically we have regular, then we had decaffeinated, and then we had special blend. So you have 3 rows. Therefore, I have 3 rows. I mean, either way, it was 3 rows. But these are my 3 rows that I'm representing. I'll just put it in a different line so that you can see. The first row is for regular. And how is it going? It's going quarter, half, and full pound prices. Right? So for each row, this is my first row. Regular, $2.60, $2.90, $3.25 if you buy half quarter pound, half pound, or full pound. Right? Now let's do the second one. Decaffeinated. I'm just making a guess because of the prices. Okay. The second one, 4.90. Remember, M is important because it's an array, because it's a decimal. If you had used a double, you won't have to say M. I choose decimal for monetary values always. 5.60 and 6.10. Decaffeinated prices. Second row is for decaffeinated, and it's quarter, half, and full pound prices. Right? If you like, if it makes more sense to you, you can kind of put it like this. It just makes, some students like to do it like this. It kind of makes more sense to them. That depends on you, however you want to do it. And then it's finished. Right? So this way you've declared a 2-dimensional array. It's a 2-dimensional array. So if you will have number of rows and number of columns. By chance, there are 3 rows and 3 columns. It could be anything, 3 rows and 5 columns. If you like, you can put here, you can say 3, 3, but it's not required. It will automatically calculate, or maybe it doesn't even like it. Maybe it doesn't even like it. Okay, we haven't completed it. Let's see. It's saying something. Maybe you can do it in C#. Represents array size cannot be specified. Oh, okay. It can only be initialized. You can only use it if you are doing new. Otherwise, you cannot. So when you initialize, you can do it. So leave it alone. You'll say, so how will I know? I'll tell you how will you know. I'll tell you that method also, how you can find out how many rows and how many columns. Okay, and the third one, the special blend is 875 for quarter pound, 975 for half pound, and 1125 for full pound. There it is. That's how you declare and initialize a 2-dimensional array. Because it's fixed for me, I initialized it. If I didn't, I would have to then go new and say, give me these many rows and these many columns, right? So that's what I need for lookup. Okay, that's an example of a 2-dimensional array, 3 rows and 3 columns. I'll show you if I'll just put it on console how to find out. The method is called getLength. Okay, if I need any other variables which I need, I'm going to use the row and I'm going to use column. I need 2 local variables, row and column. Also, I'm going to use a variable, a local variable called sales price, which will pick up the price from this array. If I need anything else, I'll add it. So you've seen 1-dimensional array by the help of, we didn't initialize it, but we have to go new. Its array is a class. Everything is a class in C#. Even your ints and everything, they're all classes, right? If you bring your mouse over it, I think that's how it happens in, oh, that's a structure. But a structure is a class without methods. That's what a structure is. What is a structure? Collection of different types. So they're called structs just because they don't have any methods, right? So the basic data types are also classes in C#. It's not a basic data type like in Java. Notice how it says struct in front of it. Struct means a class without methods. If you kind of look at it, that's how I defined it. Opening bracket, closing bracket, but I don't have any methods inside it. That's what a struct is. Okay, now let's start. Okay, so you're trying to find a price of something. That something is the type and the quantity. By default, I've already checked my quantity. So the user can never forget to do that. You know what I mean? But he should definitely select something from the combo box. So before I calculate the price, before I look up the price, I have to check that the user has selected something from my combo box. So by giving a default value to the quantity, I'm saving myself a check. I don't have to check, did the user select something? You'll say, is it okay? Really, it depends upon your application. I would say always start default. Nothing is checked. Let the user check something. But the other programmer may say, if you're going to buy coffee, you have to buy it in some quantity. So let me check the quarter pound to start with. Either way, you have to just do an extra check or whatever. Okay. Now, since I am using an array and that array is of a fixed size, I can only allow a fixed number of transactions. That certain number, remember we had that constant. Now, I am using a list also, but as I said, I would like to do it this way so that I can show you my if statements and how to work with an array. If I was using a list, I wouldn't even bother to do this. I'm not allowing a certain number of transactions. You can have any number of transactions. But in my case, I have a certain number of transactions. So that transaction integer that you did, what was it called? Transaction number. So if your transaction number is less than, you used a constant called something called maximum. What was it? Oh, maximum, there it is. Right, so I'm saying, so what is this transaction number? This transaction number is a module level variable. Maybe I could make it local. I could maybe. I'll look at it. Then I think I only need it here. Yeah, we can make it local. We can make it local. The only thing is if we make it local, we will have to initialize it to 0. But if I initialize it to 0, every time I do find, it will go back. Okay, here is a good example. Let me do this for you. Remember that variable that you've declared at the global level? Bring it here. Bring it here. Call it transaction number. I'm going to remove it from global because I only need it here. Oh, or maybe I do. I can't remember now. Maybe in printing. Have I used it in printing, guys? No, I haven't. Okay, remove it from here. And now let me show you some couple of problems that will arise. Not arise, you have to just look at it. You just have to handle it. What will happen now here? Since it is a local variable, it doesn't have any value, it's garbage, right? You will say, oh, I want to initialize it to 0 before I start. Sure, go ahead, let's initialize it to 0. But now the problem is every time I come into this method find, it will reinitialize it to 0. I don't want to do that, right? I mean, find is doing what? It is keeping a track of transactions. I don't want to do that. I can't do it. So now I'm going to try my luck from what I know from Java. Maybe you can declare it as static and it will retain its value between calls, right? So I'm going to try that just because I know that it is available in, if I say int static, doesn't like it. Or maybe static int, maybe the sequence is wrong. Doesn't like it at all. It doesn't like it. In Java, you could do it. Sorry?
I don't think you can declare static within methods. So most methods is always static.
Yeah, but no, it's the other way around. If a method is static, it can only use static variables, but that's not a restriction in Java, for example. A static variable is basically a variable, a local variable which retains its value between function calls. So the first time you call it, it will get a 0. When you have changed its value in the method and you call it back, it retains its value. It doesn't go back to 0 every time. Seems like it doesn't work here. So what's my solution, guys? I can't do this. So what's my solution? Every time you load the form, now this is where I can do it. Every time you load the form, oh, but if I do that, I have to make it global. Uh-oh, okay. I don't have a solution then. I can't use static. I don't have a solution. I'll have to make it global. Sorry about that. Can't do it. I thought I would work with static. It doesn't let me. So if it doesn't let me, I have to remove it from here. If I have to remove it from here, I have to make it global. Here is somewhere where it is required only in that method, but I can put it locally because I can't initialize it to 0 every time I start. And you don't have to initialize it to 0 here. Remember, module level variables are initialized to 0 automatically. So it should have been local, but local doesn't work for me because I need it to retain its value between method calls. It should keep its value. It should remember its value. Can't do that. So I have to make it module level variable. And static wasn't working. That's strange. I mean, not strange. It's just a different language, so you can't. Now, if it was an activated one, I'm okay here. It's in load every time I run. It's fine. But if it was closed, it was not closing, but hiding a form and so on, then I'll have to be careful that I initialize it properly to 0 every time I show it. Then I would have to put in activated. Here we are okay. Okay, can do it. Can put it here. Sorry about that. That would be the right place to put it because I'm using it here, but can do it. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm saying I will only allow 5 transactions at a time. Why? Because I'm saving these 5 transactions. Where am I saving it? In an array, and the size of the array is 5. So I have to do this. If I don't do this, you will notice I'll have an arrays out of bound exception. You could handle it. That can be done too. I know that I shouldn't be doing it, so I put an if statement. Okay, so if the value is less than 5, because I'm only saving my arrays of size 5, that's why I'm doing this. What do I need to do? I have to now find out that did the user select something in the coffee combo box. Okay, so take your column variable. I'm just calling it common, then I can remember it. So again, a comment for you so that you know, find the type of coffee selected. Okay, so let's take this. How do I get it? Which coffee was selected? Combo box dot selected index. So that combo box was called combo box coffee type dot. The method is not the method. It's not a method. It's a variable. It's called selected index. Save it. Now this value should be not equal to -1. If it is equal to -1, that means you didn't select anything, right? So I'll do a check. If find the type of coffee selected, if selection was made, that means something was selected. There is no other option. We don't have a text box. Remember, I made it a drop down list. Okay, so if this variable column is not equal to -1, we are okay. We do something. Else we'll give a message to the user. Don't forget, we'll give a message to the user. So that I don't lose count of my brackets. This was for the maximum transactions. Okay, coffee type selected. Else I'm going to give a message to the user. Please select a coffee type. So a message box dot show will do. We've been doing this. We always give a message to the user, please, so on, so forth, whatever, right? So you can do whatever you like. Give a decent message saying that, you know what, please see that you have given me a type. So any good message will do, guys, whatever you want to do. I don't know. Please select a coffee type. What else can I say? Remember, your second parameter was basically something to say that it was incomplete. So I'll call incomplete selection in my, don't forget your titles. They are neat. Let's go to the next line. It's the message box dot buttons. Okay. And the icon. You can give exclamation, you can give error, whatever you want. And oops, and always remember, always, it's always a good thing to bring your focus back. So take your combo box. I just have to remember that I've written it the opposite way today. I start with coffee and then I say, no, it's combo box. Bring the focus back to it. There it is. A couple of you forget this, don't. A select all or a clear and a focus is required. I put it in my requirement, but still I see that something doesn't work. Okay, so now let's look at the second else, which I forgot. I just remembered. If the number of transactions is less than maximum transactions, we are okay, right? But what if they are not? Let's put an else here. Again, we want to show. So that's of maximum transactions. Else, that means you've gone beyond your maximum transactions. You can't do it, right? So again, the can do it is simply the message box dot show. Oops. So let's again do a message box dot show. I'm just going to take this just because it's easy to copy and paste. But of course, I'll change the messages. So this one is saying only these many transactions are allowed. So let's do this. See, I don't have to write 5 here. I have a constant. It was called, what was it called? Maximum something for sure. Maximum transactions. There. I'm saying only these many transactions are allowed. Notice how the user is given that only these many transactions are allowed. So you cannot save more than this. And then, so you're telling the user, I can't, you can buy coffee. You can do it. You can do a selection because you've gone beyond the number of transactions in a day. Of course, I have only limited it to 5. I'll kind of limit it to 2 to make my life a little easy, but it could be 50, it could be 500, it could be 5,000 in a day, doesn't matter. So therefore, using an array to keep the transactions is not a good idea because you don't know how many. My aim is to show it to you, but definitely the list would be better. Okay, the list would be better. And I have declared a list. But why then am I doing this? So that I can show you my if that you have to check that you can't go beyond the size of the array. That's what I'm saying. That's my aim. Okay. Okay. So only these many transactions are allowed. So instead of saying incomplete selection, it's not an incomplete selection. It's something else. We'll say, I don't know, maximum number of transactions. I'll give you a break in just, let me just complete this. Okay. Maximum transactions. You can leave the OK button. You can leave the exclamation. So this is your else of that you've gone beyond. You can't save more. You cannot save more transactions. So you can again say cannot save more than maximum transactions allowed. I must point out that I'm doing this because I'm writing defensive programming. I know that I shouldn't go beyond the size of my array. I know that. If you forget to do this and you try to save a transaction, it's going to give you an array out of bounds. So the other option would have been to put it in a try catch block. And then, but what's the disadvantage of a try catch? Your application will terminate. I don't want it to terminate, maybe, right? But it can be done. So because I know that I'm using an array, because I know that the array has a maximum size, I take care in my programming that the number of transactions doesn't go beyond the maximum number of transactions. So I had that right ahead. So if it is less than 5, where was it? If it was less than 5, I'm okay. So I'll count these transactions. I'll take this transaction number and keep incrementing it. Oh, I started with a 0. 0 to 4. Yeah, we are okay. 0 to 4. I can go from 0 to 4, right? Because 5 is my size, I can go from 0 to 4. I started with 0 and I'll keep incrementing it. So it won't go beyond. So I've taken care that I cannot save more than 5 transactions. That's just how I'm doing it. And since I know I cannot go beyond, I used an if statement. If you forget your if statement and you just keep adding, it's going to throw an exception. And if it throws an exception, then you have to handle it anyway. So I prefer, as a programmer, I prefer that if there is if I can handle the error like an error, for example, if the value is less than 0, if the value is greater than 0, let me to use an if else. But if there is something that the system cannot handle and it throws an exception, then I have to put it in a try catch. I'll show you both if you're interested. It's not a big deal. Okay, so if a coffee was selected, we want to find the price here, right? So if valid selection, coffee was selected, or you can say instead of say, we can say if coffee was selected. Again, I try to make and I would like you to do the same, make your comments as English-like and as non-technical as possible. Though again, comments are only for programmers, right? Comments only I and you read it. The user never reads it. But still, just kind of saying, if selection made, this makes it just sounds better. It says if coffee type was selected. Okay, so we'll take a break here just because now we need to do a little more things here. What do I have to do? I have to now do this. So if you selected something from the coffee type, I have to do this. What did you select here? What was the quantity? Look up in the array and save the price, right? So I'll save the price. I will save the coffee type. I will save the quantity in my structure, and I'll take that structure and then put it in my array. That's what I'll do. So we'll take a break here and come back and complete this code. Okay. 20 minutes starting now. Please be back in 20 minutes.